Please like my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and please press the bell icon so that you get to know when my latest video has come. And to learn more and to find a video relevant to you, please do check out my videos list. Hello, namaskar and adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. We all want very good results on life, and we have heard that hard work and along with your qualification and your expertise can give you good results, and also a fair bit of luck. And usually we attach luck to our astrological placements, specifically to the good yogas that we have in our horoscope and in important houses. And so one of the things that we do is we search for yogas that are there in a horoscope. Now let you know that there are many yogas in each one of our horoscopes. However, what is the reason that the yogas may not give us the results that we expect? And we wait for the yogas to manifest, and yet sometimes we don't get the results from them. I've already made a video, in fact a few videos on why certain yogas manifest, why they don't manifest, and what we should do to be able to get better benefits of them. Today I'm making this video in how yogas placed in 12 different houses can give you different results based on their strength, their dignity, and the rulership of different planetary placements that are there in a horoscope. Which means that if a yoga is formed in the Lagna, what are the houses that the planets which are placed in the yoga rule? So if a yoga is formed in the Lagna and the planets rule, for example, the 3rd house, the 5th house and the 10th house, then obviously those associations, those synergies will also play a part. However, the Lagna is an important placement of a huge status and dignity and stature in society. If the lord of the planets or the rulership of the planets is the 2nd and the 4th house, which are connected to family, then how much do you expect society to be able to respect us and put us on a pedestal? Because here the rulership is more from the family. So if your family is putting on your pedestal, it need not be that everybody else is. Which means for certain yogas to give us very good results, the associations and the strengths should also be very important. Secondly, our own behavior, our own attitude, and our own adding strength to the respective houses, and through them adding strength to the yoga is also very important. So which house rulership placed in different houses of planets in the yogas give better results? How do we add strength to the yoga? Through how our attitude should be in the areas of that particular house, and through that we overall get good results, is what this video is all about. Now when I'm talking about a yoga generally means a synergy of energies between two planets. The planet generally, when we talk about a yoga, they are in conjunction, that means placed together in the same house and sign, and with few degrees difference between them. If the degree difference is very high, if it's more than 5 degree difference between them, then the yoga becomes slightly weaker than when the degree difference is between 0 to 5 degrees. If the degree difference is between 5 to 10 degrees, it is still considered to be a good enough yoga. But if the degree difference goes beyond 10 degrees, like 12, 13, 14, 15 degrees, then the yoga doesn't remain strong enough for it to manifest. Second, the planets have to be in good dignity, which means there should be no malefic aspects on them, no other malefic conjunctions on them. There should be good directional strength, and there should be no malefic aspects on the planets. Plus, the planet should also be in strong signs or benefic signs themselves. A stronger yoga is formed by benefic planets and the conjunction between, or the yoga between, the benefic planets. If there is a yoga which is formed with two planets in say 4th or 10th house, like a Gajkesari yoga between Jupiter and Moon, then I'm not talking about those kind of yogas. I'm talking about where the planets are placed together, or a yoga like a Sunafa yoga or Anafa yoga or the Dhurdura yoga, where one of the primary planets is which identifies the yoga. Say for example, here the primary planet can be the moon. So the placement of the moon will define in such a placement where the yoga is formed. So I'm talking about such yogas where the planets are placed together, or the yoga is formed because of one primary placement of the prime planet. So let's jump into what different yogas in different houses can manifest different results for us by virtue of what the rulership of the houses are and how we strengthen those houses and through them manifest the yoga better. Now for a yoga which is present in the first house, it is important that the contributing factor should be beyond just the first house, which means that the rulership of the planets of the conjunction or the yoga present in the first house should go beyond the family, as we talked about it in the introduction, which means that the rulership of the planets which are placed in the lagna, they should rule either the third house, the fifth, the 7th, 10th or the 11th for the yoga to truly manifest, because the lagna, it's about your status in society, it's about your stature in society, and if the status or the reputation is enhanced by or the strengthened by only the family, by the rulership of the planets being of the second house or the fourth house or the fifth house alone, then the amount of favor that they bring to the lagna or to the status in society or to the rise of the person in society is very limited. This is because only the family is strengthening the lagna because of the rulership of the fourth house planet placed in the lagna or the second house planet placed in the lagna. Now contrary to that, if the planets placed in the lagna rule the third house or the fifth house or the fifth or the seventh house or the seventh and the 10th house, all of which are a combination of efforts and how you deal with people, then it gives added strength to the lagna. For example, the third house is the house of your efforts and also self-enterprise, which means the more you work hard, the more your status in society is enhanced by the planet being placed in the lagna. And if the other house that the other planet or the same planet rules is the fifth house, which is the house of public performances, then your lagna gets added strength because your the efforts are combining with what the public performances are giving you as a manifestation of the status in society or your rise in society. If the yoga is formed by planets which rule the fifth and the seventh house, then the public performance is now coupled with dealing with other people, which the seventh house represents. Seventh house represents anyone and everyone that we deal on a day-to-day basis. Then too, by virtue of public performance and dealing with others on a day-to-day basis, and the business house, the seventh house, as well as signing of contracts or partnerships, then such a person's status in society can rise through business results. And most of the people that he deals with on a day-to-day basis, because of the manifestation of the public performance of the fifth house and dealing with others of the seventh house, gives added strength to the lagna, and the person's status in society is truly enhanced. If the planets rule, on the other hand, if the planets rule the 7th house and the 10th house or even the 11th house, then the 11th house being the house of social network and large masses of societies, then the person will gain through his interactions with other peoples and through huge social connections and with large masses of society. And so then the enhancement of the status in society is truly high versus compared to if the rulership of the planets which are forming the yoga in the lagna is only by virtue of the rulership of the second house or the fourth house alone, or just the fifth house or the fourth house, because then it's limited in terms of the strong results it can give you. If the external houses, which the 7th house, the 10th house or the 11th house do not get synergized or contribute to the strength of the lagna through the yogas being formed in the lagna. So it's important that when a yoga is formed in any house, it should be in line with what the house represents and should give strength to the house rather than otherwise. So the true strength to the lagna is given not just by a family but by other people who should also see you as a person of stature. if only your family sees you as a person of stature, not others, then your profitability from general society or from others beyond your family is reduced. And hence, for a yoga to be truly strong and to manifest really strong in the Lagna, it is important that the rulership of the planets which form the yoga in the Lagna is also contributed by the rulership of the 7th house or the 10th house or the 11th house, apart from being either rulership of the 3rd house or the 5th house. And only when such a situation happens can the yoga in the Lagna truly give good results, besides being a yoga of strong planets, benefic planets, close in conjunctions, no malefic effects and no malefic other conjunctions involved in the Lagna. And then such a yoga in the Dasha, Antardasha of the planets which form the yoga, or the transits of Jupiter or Saturn over the Lagna or the rulership houses, can truly give you very, very good results during those phases. And so keep this point in mind, that if you have a strong yoga in the Lagna, look at what the rulership is and try to strengthen those areas, or try to strengthen the karakas of those areas, or work in the direction of those areas also to add strength to the Lagna. If the 10th house rulership is also involved of the planet placed in the Lagna, then it's important that you have good relations with the authority figures. If the 11th house ruler is also placed in the Lagna or gets connected to the Lagna, then it's important that you have good societal connection and you work on your social network to be able to add strength to the yoga in the Lagna. Without doing this and without having an attitude of taking people along and working on relationships, the yoga in the Lagna will not give you the result that you expect. And that is the manifestation of a strong yoga in the Lagna. Now the yoga in the 2nd house is a very important yoga, because now it is involving your income, your livelihood, your savings, how you live your life with principles and values, also the house of language, the house of family or the lineage or the tribe that you're born in, family name, ability to carry the family name forward, ability to work in a family business, and also connected to resources and what kind of resources do you get in life, especially what kind of foods you will enjoy. And so if the strong yoga in the 2nd house is not connected with either the 4th house, the 6th house, the 10th or the 11th, then the strength of the yoga is reduced. Why the 4th and the 6th or the 10th and the 11th house? Now the 6th and the 10th house are also houses or related to the 2nd house by being Artha houses. Artha house means a house of money or material resources. So if the yoga in the 2nd house is connected to the rulership of the 6th and the 10th house, that means the 3 Artha houses are strongly connected. Then the money can surely come in either through service or your work area. However, if the rulership of the planets which form the yoga in the 2nd house are connected to the 4th house, then the money can also come from real estate, and you get more money through which you can add more real estate properties or more material resources, which means you can buy large houses, you can have many cars, you can have all the domestic conveniences and jewelry and anything and everything that you desire. If the yoga in the 2nd house gets connected to the 11th house, then the 11th house is also the house of gains and wishes and desires, which means that through your social connections, through the ability to work with large masses of people or work in large organizations, the fulfillment of your desires comes about. Now normally we don't have small wishes, we dream big. We want large houses, we want large amounts of money, we want huge name and fame. Nobody wants to be known only within their neighborhood or their limited area. They want to be known across the world. They want huge amounts of money. Nobody talks of millions today. People are talking about billions today. So for a strong yoga to truly manifest results of the 2nd house of livelihood, of more savings, of more income coming in, and truly being able to take your family name forward and to leave a strong legacy behind, then the 2nd house yoga should be strongly connected to any of the 4 houses. So either 4 and 6 or 4 and 10 combination, or 6 and 10 combination, or 6 and 11 combination, or 6, 10 and 11 combination, because we know that planets may rule more than 2 houses. For example, the planets Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars and Saturn all rule 2 houses each. So if it's a conjunction of Jupiter and Moon, then we definitely know 3 houses are involved, because Moon rules 1 house whereas Jupiter rules 2 more houses. So for a strong yoga to truly manifest in the 2nd house, it's important that you also try and strengthen your 4th house, your 6th house, or 10th or 11th house by virtue of behaving in the direction what these houses represent. For example, if the 4th lord is placed in the 2nd house in a strong yoga with another benefic, then how you deal with matters at home or in the domestic life become very important. If the lordship is of the 6th house, then how much of a 6th house service bent of mind you have becomes important. If the rulership is of the 10th house, then how you work with your supervisors, with authority figures, how you enhance your connection with them, and how you take along with working very, very hard, working in a structured manner, working in a dedicated manner, willing to put in long hours of work, and through that you add strength to the yoga in the second house. Versus if it's connected with the 11th house, then how you work hard on enhancing your social connections, reaching out to large masses of people, trying increasing your social network, trying increasing your friend circle, and through them the social network. All of these add strength to the yoga in the 2nd house. So if you have a yoga which is in the 2nd house, learn which houses the particular planets rule, how you can add strength to those planets by virtue of your attitude and your behavior, and through that add strength to the yoga in the 2nd house, and through that gain the prosperity, the livelihood, the savings and the income through the manifestation of a strong yoga in the 2nd house. And that is the result of a strong yoga in the 2nd house for you. For a good yoga in the 3rd house, it is important that the contributing rulership of the planet should be either connected to the Lagna, or the 6th house, or the 7th house, or the 10th or the 11th house. The reason being is that the 3rd house is the house of self-enterprise and effort, and how you are able to use your self-enterprise, your marketing ability, your branding ability, your communication to be able to get better results of your effort and your ability to communicate and be able to influence others. And if it is connected only to limited areas, for example only the 4th house or the 2nd house, then here you are reaching out only to the family but not beyond, or you are getting huge material resources, but the kind of effort that you can get through a self-enterprise will not go beyond material resources of only the house, if only the 2nd house and the 4th house are connected. However, if the yoga in the 3rd house is strongly connected to the Lagna, which means the more efforts that you put in, the better communication skills that you have, the more self-enterprise that you have, the better marketing that you can do of yourself, or the better branding that you can do of yourself, the more enhanced is your status in society. If it's connected to the 6th house, then 6th house also being the house of service and overcoming competition, then through the ability to overcome competition and to serve people, your status in society is enhanced if both the 6th house and the Lagna are involved. However, if the rulership of the planets is say of the 7th and the 10th house, then the 7th house is the house of business partnership and forming associations. The 3rd house being the house of self-enterprise means your ability to work for yourself or under self rather than reporting to somebody else. Here through your self-enterprise you can establish a strong business, and through that you can gain huge amounts of money and influence others, which the 7th house represents. And the 10th house being the house of authority figures, that means your status in society and your efforts can give you better connections with strong authority figures and very, very important people or VIPs of the world. And through that connection of the 7th house, which is business, partnerships and anybody and everybody that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and the 10th house representing authority figures, that means Most of the people that you deal on the day-to-day basis will be very important people, people of good stature in society themselves, which means the more you work hard at building relationships, at forming partnerships, at teamwork, which the 7th house represents, and being able to influence and work with authority figures, VIP people and people in power, the more you will be able to add to your self-enterprise and gain more out of your self-enterprise and your hard work. If it's get connected to the 11th house, then which means the more you work hard, the more you are able to influence large masses of society and social network, which the 11th house represents. That means that much more the fulfillment of your desires comes about through the 11th house. So if you have a strong yoga in the 3rd house, it is better that the yoga is connected to either the lagna or the 6th house, the 7th house or the 10th house or the 11th house, and your behavior, your attitude should be through your aptitude, your attitude, you add strength to these houses, and through that make the yoga in the 3rd house strong. And through these, apart from the yoga being strong, the yoga being in close conjunction, the planets involved being in close conjunction with each other and with no malefic tendencies, no malefic aspects, no malefic conjunctions involved, and being placed in a friendly sign, then the yoga is a truly strong yoga and can be given added strength through your behavior and through your attitude. And that is the result of a strong yoga in the 3rd house for you. A strong yoga in the 4th house is one of the best yogas you can have, and this is very, very strong from a material resources. The other thing apart from material resources is also that the 4th house is the house of your mental peace and domestic happiness, which means a very strong yoga in the 4th house, which is bereft of any malefic influences or other malefic conjunctions or aspects, and in a benefic sign plus a close conjunctions of the yoga forming planets, then you can have huge material resources. You can get large houses, you can get lots of cars, you can get all domestic appliances, you can have large plots of land and many houses across the globe. Anything and everything that you wish materialistically can be yours. Plus you will have a great domestic life, you will have mental peace. So you have all the kinds of money in the world and you are happy at home, you have mental peace. What more do you want? However, if the rulership of the planets of the 4th house get connected to the dusthanas in some way, for example the 6th house or the 12th house, then there can be a challenge, because the 6th house is the 3rd house from the 4th house, and if the 12th house, which is the house of waste and excess, gets involved, then you can have larger losses in your property and your mental peace and your domestic happiness, and your material resources can also be spent in unnecessary expenses. So if there is a strong yoga in the 4th house, it is important that it gets connected through rulership to either the 2nd house, the 5th house, the 8th house, the 9th or the 11th house. The reason that these houses are involved is because the 2nd house is the house of livelihood, and if your livelihood is very strong, you are having large amounts of income coming in, then automatically the amount of material resources that you get of the 4th house can also be increased. And because the 2nd house also represents the family and the dependence on you, then by virtue of the association of the 2nd and the 4th house, this can give you a lot of stability in your material resources. And if the 5th house gets involved, then through speculation you can also gain a lot of money, and through speculation you can also gain more material resources. So if you buy a plot of land as an investment, that plot of land can give you huge returns, or you buy a house that can give you good returns, the property can give you good returns. Now because the 5th house and the 4th house, the Kendra house and the Trikona house get involved, which is a strong Raja Yoga as well. Plus if the 8th house is involved, then the 8th house is 9th houses away from the 4th house and 5th house from away from the 4th house. So there is a 5 and 9 connection here. Plus the 8th house is also the house of moksha along with the 4th house. And the 8th house is also the house of other people's money. That means through other people's money, other people's involvement, And with the 5 and 9 connection, you can make huge amounts of money, you can make huge amounts of material resources, and get connected to strong government influences or government authorities, as well as strengthen the moksha. So that's why a conjunction or a yoga in the 4th house is really very strong yoga, which connects you also an ability to also have a crack at salvation itself. So if you deal with family well, you carry yourself with values, and you also take people along, then this is a very, very strong yoga. The other placement is if the 9th house or the 11th house get involved along with the 4th house. Now the 9th house is important because the 9th house is also Trikona house, and if it gets connected to the 4th house by virtue of the rulership being placed in the 4th house, then this is also strong Dharma Karma Adhipati yoga because of the aspect on the 10th house of the planet which rules the 9th house and being placed in the 4th. And the Dharma Karma Adhipati yoga is also very, very strong yoga and one of the best yogas which can be formed. And it is also the house of fate and luck. That means through strong fate and luck, through your educational qualification, through your ability to meet with others from different cultures, you are able to gain more material resources. You can have houses in foreign lands also. You can also have a lot of foreign resources in your life, and your fate and luck in enhancing your mental peace and enhancing your domestic life can also grow up. And hence the 9th house being involved in the yoga in the 4th house is also very, very lucky and auspicious. The other connection with the 4th house, if it's connected with the 11th house, is also strong influence, because here through your social connections and through your fulfillment of desires, you get all sorts of material resources, and hence the 4th house getting involved along with the rulership of the 11th house or the 9th house or the 8th or the 5th or the 2nd house all add strength to the yoga. So if you have a strong yoga which is bereft of any malefic conjunctions or aspects, or placed in the friendly sign and in a tight conjunction, then check whether the rulership of the planets is connected to either the 2nd, 5th, 8th, 9th or 11th house, and if it is, then add strength to the yoga through how you are able to work with your gurus, what kind of good relations you have with your father, what kind of social interactions and social network you can increase through the connection with the 11th house, how you can take more calculated risks of the 5th house, and how you can save more money and work on long-term savings and through that make money as a future resource as well. And through your right attitude, through strengthening these houses, you can truly get higher gains of the yoga in the 4th house. And that is the result and the way to really strengthen the 4th house yoga and to get the best results from it. A yoga in the 5th house is a very strong yoga, because now the 5th house being the house of gains and being 5th from the Lagna and 9th from the 9th house of fate and luck is having a very, very strong yoga. The 5th house is also the house of public performances, also gaining from speculation and also gaining from those areas which you like, where your interests are, where your hobbies are, and also a strong house of romance, which means you can have a truly romantic partner, you can be lucky in romance, you can be lucky in children, you can be lucky in speculative investments, and you can also have overall luck in terms of if you are a performer, if you are somebody connected to arts, then you can have a lot of adulation from the public. Now it's important that the 5th house gets connected to either the 2nd house, the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, the 10th or the 11th. The reason that the 5th house should be connected to any of these houses through the yoga planets having the rulership of any of these houses is because of how they can add strength to the 5th house. Firstly, the 5th house is the 4th house from the 2nd house, so it's a Kendra house from the 2nd house. Second, the 2nd house is also the house of your income and your earnings. So the 5th house being the house of gains and also the house of your hobbies and what you like to do or what you love to do. So gaining from what your interests are increases your tendency to make more money. And what better than to make money out of your interest and out of something that you love to do. rather than being forced to do. And hence the second house getting connected to the fifth house yoga through rulership is very important. The other is the third house and the sixth house. The third house, because of the more effort that you put in, the more self-enterprise that you show, the more you are able to communicate better, the more you will gain out of the fifth house of public performances, especially because the third and the fifth house are strongly connected to the arts. And the third house is also the house of self-enterprise. So if you are somebody who investing in business, then the gains of the fifth house, which also represents business because it's also a house of speculative investments, and so through the third house it's self-enterprise, and the fifth house the speculation and investments and gains and luck can truly strengthen the yoga in the fifth house. If the sixth house is involved, then the sixth house being the second house to the fifth house, so a lot of gains out of speculative investments can come about, overcoming competition. And the sixth house is also Artha Bhav. Then the fifth house being connected to the ninth house, both being 9-5 connection from each other, and both being a Trikona houses, and both being the house of gains. So huge gains from people from across boundaries, from across cultures can come in and strengthen the yoga in the fifth house. The fifth house getting connected to the 10th and 11th houses is also important, because now the fifth house, which is the 8th house from the 10th house, is getting connected by virtue of rulership to the 10th house, which means the risks that you take in career can go to your advantage, can work in your favor. And the 11th house being the 7th house from the 5th house, so you can have very strong social connections and get gains in business and working with large masses and in large organizations if either the 10th or the 11th house lords get connected to the 5th house. Especially at the 10th house is also the house of authority figures or superiors or managers. So the 10th house or Kendra house getting connected to the 5th house, a Trikona house, and 8 houses away, which means that the calculated risks that you take in your career can be helped by how good a relationship you have with authority figures at work. And hence, if the 5th house yoga, a strong 5th house yoga which has no malefic aspects, no malefic conjunctions, is placed in a friendly sign, gets connected to the 2nd, 3rd, 6th, 9th, 10th or 11th house, then it's a very strong yoga and you can get best gains out of it. Provided your attitude, your aptitude is also in line of service, in line with working with other people, in line with working and having better relationship with your supervisors and working on better social connections. And through these, you can add strength to the 5th house and gain more out of the 5th house yoga. A yoga in the 6th house is an important yoga because the 6th house is also an Artha Bhava, which is the house of money and resources. And the 6th house is also the Brihu Bhav, which is connected to your karma or your leftover karma or the gains of the Sanchita karma represented by the 5th house. So if the 6th house gets connected by rulership, which means the 6th house yoga planets get connected to either the 2nd house, the 3rd, 7th, 10th, 11th or the 12th houses, then too this yoga can be strong yoga. The reason that the 6th house yoga planetary rulership can be connected to the 2nd house is because the 6th house is 5th house from the 2nd house, and the 2nd house and the 10th house are also the houses of Artha Bhava or Artha houses or money houses. So by virtue of the 6th house rulership getting connected to the 2nd house and or the 10th house, then too large amounts of money can come in getting connected to your career. So you get more authority, you get more power, you get more influence by virtue of the 10th lord getting connected to the 6th house, being 5 places away from the 6th house and the 9th house is away. So it's a 5-9 connection also between the 6th and the 10th house plus the Artha houses. And so strong connections of strong rise in career and very high rise in career, and also the ability to reach the highest points in your career and reach the status of power and influence in career is represented by the 10th house. By virtue of the 3rd house, now the 6th house is the 4th house from the 3rd house and a Kendra house, which means the more effort that you put in, the more material resources that you will get in through the money that you earn in service connected to the 6th house, and the ability to overcome competition. So the more effort that you put in, the 6th house being the 4th house from the 3rd house, you will be able to overcome competition, you will be able to do better at work, in your career, with a service bent of mind, and get all sorts of material resources. So if you are able to add strength to the 6th house yoga through more efforts, through your better communication skills, through how you market yourself better, then the yoga can give you better results. The other connection of the 6th house yoga to the 7th or the 11th or the 12th houses is by virtue of how you're working, your ability to work with other people. Because the 7th house and the 11th house is the house of other people and how you work with them. So if a yoga is a strong yoga in the 6th house, which is connected to service, serving others, so the more you are able to serve better others, the 7th house being the second house to the 6th house, which means through your service what gains you can get. And because the 7th house is also the house of other people and partnerships, so the more you are able to get connected to other people, build strong teams, build strong partnerships, the more you gain. And the 11th house, by virtue of being the house of fulfillment of your desires and of gains, and being an upachaya house, which the 6th house is also, which means over a period of time putting in hard work, having a service bent of mind, overcoming competition, the fulfillment of all your desires can come about. So if you have a 6th house yoga, then getting connected to the 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 10th, 11th or the 12th houses, specifically being in a benefic sign, the tight conjunction between the planets which form the yoga, no malefic association, no malefic aspects, and through your better behavior and attitude and hard work, you can strengthen the yoga of the 6th house and get better results out of that yoga. So if you have the 6th house yoga, see what synergies it is getting into, what rulership it is getting connected to. So strengthen those houses, those areas, and you will find that you will gain better out of the yoga in the 6th house. And that is the result of a yoga in the 6th house for you. A yoga in the 7th house is a very important yoga, especially an auspicious yoga, because here the conjunction is also aspecting the lagna. And hence, if the association also gets connected with the lagna through rulership, or to the 2nd house, 4th, 5th, the 10th or the 11th, then too the yoga can be strong yoga and can give you better results. The reason being is, firstly, the 7th house planets in conjunctions are aspecting the lagna, and if they also rule the lagna, which means the lagna itself is getting involved in partnerships or dealing with people or forming associations, and through that getting you gains, and big gains which the 7th house represents, especially in business or in partnerships. If the second house is involved, then here huge amounts of money and your livelihood and your gains from livelihood and your savings grow up by virtue of you being able to form partnerships and having better associations and being able to deal with other people better. Especially also because the 2nd house represents your culture and your principles. So if you are somebody who the other people see as somebody who is very cultured, works with principles, will not cheat anybody, and through the associations and the trust that you build, you can also make a lot of money. The other connection is with the 4th house, because both the 4th house and the 7th house as well as the 10th house are in kendra to each other, and so this is the strong manifestation. The 4th house is also the house of your domestic happiness and mental peace, and the 7th house is the house of relationship. So if the yoga is formed in the 7th house by virtue of rulership of the 4th house, which means that the domestic happiness comes from how you are able to deal with your spouse, and the material resources of the 4th house comes in with what kind of a partnerships you are able to make, and how you deal with other people, and how you can work in teams. And so it becomes a strong kendra relationship plus very strong domestic factor coming in, which will help you make money and make material resources also. With the 5th house getting connected, the 5th house is the 11th house from the 7th house, and also the house of public performances. So here the more effort that you put in, because the 7th house is the 3rd house from the 5th house, the gains or the fulfillment of your desires, because the 5th house being the 11th house from the 7th house comes about. So the more you work hard, the more you take calculated risks, which the 5th house represents, in dealing with other people and with the principles and values of the 2nd house, the more gains you can make. If the rulership is also of the 10th house, then the 10th house is an Upachaya house and the Kendra house to the 10th house. So the way you work with people at work and with your supervisors and with authority figures can enhance your status in society by virtue of the 7th house planets aspecting the Lagna, and you also get gains, and you can also get lot of name, fame, adulation while being connected to other people and being the ability to hobnob with authority figures or the VVIPs which the 10th house represents. By virtue of the 11th house getting involved through rulership, one is the 11th and 7th house of the 5 and 9 connection. Secondly, the 11th house is the house of social interactions, large masses of people, which to an extent even the 7th house represents, being the house of dealing with other people on a day-to-day basis. So the gains of the 7th house or in partnerships or associations or in business comes from how you are your ability to deal with large masses of people of the 11th house, and through that fulfillment of your desires. So if there is a 7 and 11th house connection with the yoga in the 7th house, then this can fulfill all your aspirations, all your desires, and make a lot of money for you, and can give you huge gains in society and a big status also. So it's a very, very important yoga. If it's a good yoga in the 7th house, which is bereft of any malefic associations, in a good sign, close tight conjunction between the planets, and no malefic aspects also on it. So if you have a yoga, strong yoga in the 7th house, put a better attitude on, learn to work better with other people, learn to strengthen the other manifestation by virtue of rulership of the other houses, and you'll find that this is a yoga which can take you to places and can take you to highest excellence from a business and money point of view. A strong yoga in the 8th house is a very balanced position. One, though it may scare off people, one of the things it does is it gives you some kind of an intuition also, a sort of a deja vu, which means many times you have an intuition to know whether there are any challenges or issues or problems which may arise. So when you're buying a property, you may get the gut feeling that this may not work for you. If you're getting into a relationship, there may be a gut feeling or an intuition that this may not work for you. If you're going on a journey, you may have a gut feeling that better let me check the tires, or let me check the engine also, because I don't want to have a breakdown. So somewhere the intuition supports you because of the strong yoga being there. Because the 8th house also represents mystical things, mysterious things, not so evident things, or virtual things. The other thing is also does is it gives you a strong strength to face challenges and obstacles, which the 8th house represents. So if the 8th house gets connected to the Lagna or the 2nd house or the 4th house or the 11th house or the 12th houses, then it's a fantastic yoga. Especially the 4th on the 11th and the 12th house, by virtue of both the 4th and the 12th houses also being moksha houses and being 5 and 9 relationship from the 8th house. And so also being the houses representing the water energies, this, and if you do very well, and if you are able to help other people, and you are able to add strength of how you are able to handle things in your domestic life, or ability to be able to part with things, to be able to help people, be charitable, help people who are in problems themselves, or the sick people, or those who are caught in the law, or help a person who is mired with the law to turn over a new leaf, then it's a very, very strong placement of moksha. The other thing is also the ability to earn from foreign lands also can come with the 8th house, especially connected to the government. This is also strong placement where your residence could be in foreign lands if the 12th house is involved and the 4th house is involved, and gaining a lot of money. But this is also placement of sudden developments. So suddenly getting inheritance, suddenly getting a legacy, suddenly getting more money or saving money because of taxes, or sudden rise in your life, sudden rise in status can also come with a strong yoga in the 8th house. You can get money mysteriously, you can get gains mysteriously when the least expected, and you can overcome all obstacles, all challenges, and a strong crack at moksha itself, where the 4th or the 12th house or the Lagna gets connected to the 8th house. By virtue of the 8th house getting connected by rulership to the 11th house. Here the 11th house is 4 houses away from the 8th house. So strong yoga in the 8th house can get you all your desires and fulfillment of your desires of the 11th house. Plus you can have strong social connections, and through your strong social connections you can get a lot of material resources, with the 11th house being 4 houses away from the 8th house. And this is also a strong placement of being a very karmic placement, because here the better societal associations you have and the more you help people, if the 11th and 12th get involved by virtue of rulership of the planets placed in the 8th house in the yoga, then through huge social causes that you do, charitable causes that you do of the 12th houses, you are almost closely associated with moksha. So if you have a rulership of the 12th and the 11th houses, planets placed in the 8th house in a strong yoga, in a benefic house, with no other malefic conjunction, no malefic aspects, and a tight conjunction between them in a friendly sign, then this is a very strong yoga which can give you both the worldly success and the moksha or the salvation success also. So truly strong yoga if you have a yoga in the 8th house. Please strengthen the rulership of the houses which the planets place in the yoga in the 8th house manifest, and through that strengthen the yoga and get more better results of both this world and the hereafter. And that is the result of the yoga in the 8th house for you. A yoga in the 9th house is a truly very strong placement, because the 9th house is the best house of gains in the horoscope. Plus the 9th house is also the house of fate and luck. So having a strong yoga in the 9th house is as good as the fate and luck being given to you in your hands. You do better and you get better gains, and you are able to open the doors of fate and luck for you. This is true especially if the 9th house yoga planets by rulership get connected to the lagna, or the 4th house, the 5th house, or the 6th or the 11th house. The reason being is the lagna is 5 houses away from the 9th house, and so it has a 5-9 connection. Plus the 9th house is also the house of your prarabdha karma. So when the prarabdha karma placement rulership is connected to the lagna, then you are directly connecting the lagna to the placement of the prarabdha karma. So the better you are able to behave, the better you are able to carry yourself, the better you are able to carry yourself with dignity and with principles which the lagna represents, the more gains you will make out of the 9th house, and the more you are able to manifest what the prarabdha karma is. Plus the lagna is also of huge status in society, which means that you can get a lot of educational qualifications, you can get a lot of experience through your learnings, and vice versa, and through your learnings you get through more experiences. So this can be a very strong placement of your status in society being enhanced by virtue of your 9th house of fate and luck, and it being literally given in your hands. The other connection of the 9th house, if connected to the 4th house, again is because of the 4th house and the 9th house being the Kendra and the trine houses, and this is the strong placement also of the Raj Yoga placement. And so large amounts of money and gains and property can be made by a strong yoga in the 9th house by virtue of being connected to the 4th house. And through your experiences, through your learning, through your wisdom, you also enhancing the domestic happiness and the mental peace of the 4th house. And you also be able to visit large different countries, meet with different people, and even have houses across boundaries, and have more houses in different locations around the world. So very strong connection of the doors of fate and luck opening for you with the 4th house connection, where the more you deal better with in your domestic affairs, the doors of fate and luck open more and more for you and give you more gains. The 5th house connection of the 9th house is a very karmic placement, because the 5th house is the house of sanchita karma, now being attached to the 9th house of prarabdha karma. So your ability to be able to add value to your karma or give off your karmic debts is very strong, because 2 trine houses are getting involved. Plus the 5th house is the house of speculation also. That means the more calculated risks that you take, and you make investments, speculative investment, the more gains you can make of the 9th house, with the doors of fate and luck opening for you, including that of your career. The 6th house being involved is because the 9th house is 4 houses away from the 6th house. So by virtue of doing very well in service, using your educational qualification, using your higher learning, you can make a lot of material resources, and through that you can also gain a lot of mental peace and domestic happiness, and your ability to be able to overcome competition, and through that open the doors and fate and luck also go up with a 6th house connection of a strong yoga in the 9th house. And if the 9th house gets connected by rulership with the 11th house, then too it's a great placement, because one, the 9th house is the 11th house away from the 11th house. So all fulfillment of desires represented by the 11th house through the doors of fate and luck opening in the 9th house, and through your higher experiences, through your qualification, through your wisdom, and getting connected to foreign lands, foreign connections, foreign cultures, you name it. This is one of the best yogas that you can have by virtue of connection of the 11th house rulership in the 9th house, especially in a benefic sign with no malefic conjunctions or associations or aspects, and in a benefic sign. So if you have a strong yoga in the 9th house by virtue of getting connected to the Lagna, the 4th, 5th, 6th or the 11th house, then add strength to the yoga in the 9th house by having good behavior of the Lagna in your domestic life, how you deal with people, how you connect with others, what kind of calculated risks you take, and how you build your social connections. And through that, be able to get the most out of your 9th house yoga. And that is the manifestation of a strong yoga in the 9th house for you. A strong yoga is the 10th house, especially a Raj yoga, can give you all the power and influence and authority, and you yourself not only hobnob with the who's who of the world, but you also become a big VIP. This can be a very, very strong yoga, because this can give you both the worldly success and the material success, and huge power and influence in your hands. Especially if the 10th house gets connected to the Lagna or the 2nd house or the 3rd, 5th, 6th, 9th or the 11th. It has many associations through which it can get gains. With the Lagna, with being Kendra to each other, and through the Lagna, which also represents your status, and the 10th house, which represents placement and authority, your reputation in the world can truly be enhanced, and you get a lot of power and influence. With the 2nd house, both of them being Artha houses and having the 5th and 9th connection, so your livelihood being giving you more gains, giving you more authority, and your income increasing, and you having large amounts of savings also, because of having strong placement and power and influence in your career or related to your work. With the 3rd and the 5th house, this means that both the 3rd and the 10th house being Upachaya houses, the more hard work that you put in, the better you can brand yourself, the better you can market yourself, the better you can communicate with other people, the more gains you can make out of the 10th house and get more power and influence as well. With the 5th house connection, here the 5th house being the 8th house away from the 10th house, which means if you are able to take calculated risks, then you can also enhance the openings that you get, join different companies, work with people who are higher ups, get those associations through which you hobnob with the VIPs, and you yourself raise the status in your career and move up the career ladder. With the 6th house connection, again 6th and the 10th house both being Upachaya houses, and 6th house being the house of service, whereas the 10th house being the house of career, and 10th house being 5 houses away from the 6th house, which means that in your career, overcoming all competition, you can rise high and hobnob with the who's who, and get a lot of power and influence, and have the highest status, the highest designation in your work. The corner office that you always aspired for can be yours if you strengthen the yoga in the 10th house by your 6th house connection. If you know how to deal with your colleagues, how you are able to work with other people, how you have a service bent of mind, and how you are able to overcome competition in the 6th house. The 9th-10th house connection is because this is one of the strongest placements of the Dharma Karma with the yoga, because the 9th house represents Dharma and the 10th house represents Karma. So if the rulership of the 9th house gets connected to the 10th house by virtue of rulership and a strong yoga, this is the best yoga that somebody can have, and a very, very strong yoga for both material success, worldly success, power, influence, and also a strong crack at moksha. So if you have a strong yoga in the 10th house connected to the Lagna, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 9th or 11th houses, then understand the rulership of the houses, strengthen the attributes of those houses, strengthen the behaviors of those respective houses, and through increasing the behavior and better manifestation of that, increase the yoga of the 10th house and get better results out of that. If you don't strengthen those respective houses, then the yoga in the 10th house becomes weak and will not be able to give you the results which it truly has the potential for. So if you have the yoga in the 10th house, calculate and know which rulership of houses is forming the yoga in the 10th house, and if it's in a tight conjunction with no malefic aspects, no malefic conjunctions, no malefic associations of any kind, and in a benefic sign, then this can be one of the best yogas that you can have of both this world and the hereafter. The yoga in the 11th house can be one of the best yogas that you can have. The only tricky part of this is this yoga doesn't give you good results initially. This makes you struggle a lot because it is an upachaya house, and it makes you struggle a lot before it gives you the results in life. So if you want to have all fulfillments of all your desires, have huge name, fame in society, have strong societal network and connections, almost have a celebrity status, then a strong Raj Yoga 11th house can give you all of that. Especially if it gets connected to the 2nd house, the 3rd house, the 4th house, the 5th house or the 7th house. The 2nd house manifestation is because the 2nd house is the house of your livelihood, the house of your income and savings. So all your desires for having a higher income, higher saving can be manifested if there is a connection between the 2nd house and the 11th house, both of which are houses of gains and also of resources. The 3rd house and connection with the 11th house is also a strong connection because here the 11th house is 9 houses away from the 3rd house, which means the harder effort that you put in your work, the better you communicate, the better you can market yourself, the better you brand yourself, the better associations you will have at work, the better associations you can have in society, the better network you can be through your better branding and your ability to influence, and through that all the fulfillment of your desires can come about. And with the 11th house connection to the 4th house, which means all the fulfillment of desires for every material resource that you can have by virtue of houses, by virtue of cars, by virtue of all sorts of conveniences, jewelry, you name it, the 4th house can give you, and also the manifestation of a strong domestic life and a lot of peace and happiness. So if you have a celebrity status in the world, you have all the fulfillment of your desires, you have all the material resources, you have mental peace, and if you have domestic happiness, what more you want? So very, very strong connection of the 11th house to the 4th house. The 5th house connection becomes another strong connection of the 11th house because now the 5th and the 11th house are 7 houses away from each other, which means the more calculated risks that you take in your work life and the more you build partnerships, the more your ability to work with other people is manifested through how you form associations, through how you work with other people in a teamwork. The more your societal enhancements happen, the more stature you will get in society, and through that the fulfillment of your desires comes about, the fulfillment of your speculative investments come about, gains are attracted to you, and you get love, romance, and also good luck for your children as well, and you get lucky in the matter of children. With the 7th house connection, here the 11th house is 5 houses away from the 7th house, which means in building partnerships, in building business partnerships, all the fulfillment of your desires of the 11th house and social connections comes about, especially being 5 houses away. So if you are getting connected to business, you form strong partnerships, then your reputation in the world can be that of an industrialist, of a very rich person, of a person whose ability to work with people is high, and you gain in partnerships, and you have a celebrity status of a person who is a rich person and whose ability to take people along is also enhanced. A very, very strong position of gains in the long run, a good placement for good relationship, a good placement for your spouse also being somebody from your friend circle, a good placement from your spouse being a celebrity himself or herself, and through the spouse you having a high status in society. or your status in society or your fulfillment of your desires coming about. So if you have a strong yoga in the 11th house, work stronger in enhancing your relation with your spouse and to have better connections in your domestic life, putting in more effort, and through your effort, through your ability to work with people, through your ability to have good domestic, good environment in your domestic life, strengthen the yoga of the 11th house and gain good gains all around. So if you have the 11th house yoga, please take it forward and make it manifest, and that is the result of a 11th house yoga, strong yoga for you. If you have a strong yoga in the 12th house, this can be a very good yoga for both a moksha perspective and a perspective of a ability to be able to leave a strong legacy behind. A strong yoga in the 12th house, which is also the house of giving up or letting go, can be good yoga where you leave a lot of legacy behind when you leave the world, which means you're long remembered long after you're gone. As somebody who's been a nice man, a kind man, as an expert, as a guru, you could be somebody who is remembered long for the high contribution which you do in arts or any field that you are associated with, or in economics or in business. So you will definitely be one of the heroes of that industry. You can be one of the heroes of that legacy, doing somebody who is remembered as a philanthropist, who has done a lot of charity works, who has left behind a lot of schools, lot of other such places where you have made a foundation, leaving large amounts of money behind and helping a lot of other people, can be this placement. Especially if the 12th house gets connected to the Lagna, this can be a very strong placement where you are letting go of everything, of giving up everything, and through that being a philanthropist, and through that your name, status, respect in society growing up. If it gets connected to the 3rd house, then because of the 3rd house being also the house of effort and communication and marketing and how you brand yourself, then through your ability to put in more effort and through how much you put in effort, the more legacy you are able to leave behind, the more gains you get out of foreign lands, out of foreign associations, and of helping people and leaving a stronger legacy behind. With the 4th house connection here, you can have a house or residence in the foreign lands and do very well materialistically in foreign lands. With the 5th house connection here, because of the 5th house being the house of gains but also the house of sanchita karma, so a house, strong yoga in the 12th house gets connected to the sanchita karma of the 5th house, which means through very strong legacy you can wipe out a large amount of your debts that you are carrying through the sanchita karma, and through taking ability to take calculated risks, you also make gains, and yet you are able to give up a lot and also be charitable in the world. So very strong connection. With the 8th house connection with the 12th house being 5 houses away, very strong connection to be able to overcome all obstacles and do very well in foreign lands, to overcome all obstacles and then overcome competition or do very well in armed forces. This can be somebody who gets a medal for bravery and also gets remembered long after they are gone as a hero. With the 9th house connection, with the 12th house being 4 houses away from the 9th house, and the 9th house also being the house of dealing with foreign people, traveling far and dealing with other people from other cultures, very strong placement of doing very well in foreign lands with foreign clients, ability to mix with all sorts of people, and through that ability to deal with them, get all sorts of material resources, houses, cars, jewelry, everything. So with a strong 9th house connection to the 12th house, the doors and fate and luck open for you in foreign connections, in foreign lands, and in leaving a strong legacy behind and gaining out of your karma and gaining out of the moksha, especially the 9th house being the house of prarabdha karma. So if you have a strong yoga which is bereft of any malefic associations, malefic conjunctions, and no malefic planets placed there and no malefic aspects, and in a friendly sign, then this can be one of the best yogas of strong results of in this life and leaving behind a legacy of being a hero and one of the biggest contributors in this world and for a life hereafter. And that is the manifestation of a strong yoga in the 12th house. So if you have a yoga in the 12th house, please enhance and strengthen the houses whose rulership, the planets who have who form the yoga in the 12th house are. And through right attitude, through ability to work with principles, through ability to enhance those houses and strengthen those houses, and through that the yoga, you get the best results out of this life and the next life out of a strong yoga in the 12th house. And that is the result of a strong yoga, a good yoga in the 12th house for you. Now that we have looked at how different yogas can be placed in different houses and how do we strengthen the yoga, how do we manifest the yoga, and how we can get the best extraction out of the yoga for better results, please look into your own horoscopes and see where the yoga is, what the planets that are involved in the yoga, which houses they rule, and how you can strengthen those houses and those attitude and those attributes and those karakas and those relations, and through them get better results of the yoga that is there in the respective houses. So if sun or moon are involved, obviously you will have to have good relation with your father and mother. If Venus is involved, then good relationship with the opposite gender. For a woman, if Jupiter is involved, good relations with the husband will give you better manifestation of the yoga. So basis this, please look into and define how the yoga is going to give you strength and use the yoga for better results. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me, the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend, astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.